and go in denial. Picking off victims whenever I style. Give them the hiccups, then leave them in wild. Hopping out just like a stick up, you're missing the picture. We hit you, then leave you in ground. Hit her with game like a pickup, she letting me into positions that you never found. Flexing with extras but missing the crown. Flipping with Tetris when we come around. Put them on stretches when we live the town. This is the message from builders of mounds. I'm just used to doing what I want. I'm just used to doing what I want. I'm just used to doing what I want. What I want. Because, I mean, if phenotype doesn't matter, then they should stop calling us black, huh? If phenotype doesn't matter, then they should really stop referring to us as being black. You know, because being black is a part of a phenotype, right? Looking at something on the outside and judging for what they are on the inside. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say the phenotype doesn't matter, yet we're still black. Practice makes perfect, huh? Practice makes perfect. That means you have to practice at this. You have to practice at not incorporating this term black in your vocabulary to describe people, even if it is to get their attention. There are tons of other terms. Stop being lazy. Because people will see this face and say, hey, man, you don't know who this person is. The phenotype doesn't mean anything. Calm. So phenotype don't mean anything. You shouldn't be able to look at someone that's dark skinned and immediately say that they're black. We shouldn't be looking at what's natural and then making a connection to blackness. Because if we really know, then we understand we are the Etherians. We're talking about true inner light. And the melanin rich, those rich in melanin, well, they're the personification of this embodied light. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to tell you phenotypes don't matter. And if phenotypes don't matter, that's the wave I can surf. But why are we the only people judged for our phenotypes? Furthermore, finding a resemblance in art, especially those from the ancestors. How can one not recognize oneself? Because we see a lot of cons that look like this. We see a lot of cons with these phenotypes. I mean, I know a con that looks like this right now. We know some cons that look like this right now. You know what I'm saying? That's how we know it's a tribal flow. So shalom to you for choosing up and deciding to tap in with another presentation on the Ether Bus. Max Tawada to Ama and Abba. Halahawa. We gonna carry on. It's part 3. We still surfing the wave. Tamoanchan. What it do? Let's get it.
At the time of the conquest, the Spanish asked around and got several different At the time of the conquest, the Spanish asked around and got several different interpretations for the word from people who spoke different languages. In the Spanish documents at the time, Tamoanchan is interpreted to mean "we go down to our home," or "place of the misty sky," or "place where the gods are born." Modern
Place where the gods are born. That's where we really surfing the wave, right? Tamoanchan, a place where the gods are born. Keep in mind, there's
I can't.
Man, why does that keep happening?
At the time of the conquest, the Spanish asked around and got several different interpretations for the word from people who spoke different languages. In the Spanish documents at the time, Tamoanchan is interpreted to mean "we go down to our home," or "place of the misty sky," or "place where the gods are born."
All right. Place where the gods are born. Teotihuacan. All right. Land of the Khan. Surf the wave.
Modern speakers of the ancient language of Nahuatl, who number over 1 million in the year 2020, scratch their heads when trying to come up with a meaning for the word Tamoanchan. Scholars have long since believed that the word is most likely not Aztec in origin. At the time of the conquest,
All right, not Aztec in origin. And we're getting from part 2 that actually they just adopted the ways of the people that they found there. All right, and that's the theme throughout these ancient Americas. All right, these ancient Americas where people were just, taking up the lifestyle that was presented and practiced by the originals. So we're going to carry on. Max Tawada to the real ones. Shalom. This drop was brought to you by Kansas City and Massachusetts. All right. Kansas City and Massachusetts. So, aha, to those in that area, in those areas, you know what I'm saying? This was presented by way of them. So Max Tawada, all praises to the creator. Let's surf the wave.
Mesoamerica was like other parts of the Americas, all right? It was a port of call for many missionaries, especially the serpents of wisdom arriving from both motherlands, all right? These serpents were Pakal, Votan, Itzamamna, and Quetzalcoatl, all right? They became teachers and priest kings of their adoptive peoples, all right? Tamoanchan, the place where the people of the serpent landed. It's also called the place where the gods were made. All right. These French people came after the Spanish conquest, and they talked to the old people, the Nahuatl. All right. And they said that their forefathers came here from the east, from the direction of Florida. They came sailing along the coast. All right. A port of from the direction of Florida.
All right, so we see as she's reading from this book, and it's kind of hard to read from the way that I'm doing it here on my laptop. But I wanted to read from where she started off right here, right? And I just want to read what I was able to see all the way down. All right. So it says Mesoamerica was like other parts of the Americas, a popular port of call for missionary serpents of wisdom arriving from both motherlands. I surf the wave. Some of these colonizing serpents, such as Pakal Votan, Itzamana, and Quetzalcoatl, eventually became teachers and priest kings of their adopted peoples. Tamoanchan, the place where the people of the Serpent landed. Okay, and dodge all hijacks when you see this serpent. Because we know we're talking about Nagas. We know we're talking about Khans. All right, get part 1. It says perhaps the earliest written record of the arrival of the Serpent missionaries to Mesoamerica was composed by Bernardo de Sahagan, a Franciscan monk who arrived in Mexico following the Spanish conquest and became the official historian for his people. Through numerous conversations with the Nahual, aka the old people, he learned that the forefathers of the Mesoamericans were serpents who came east from the direction of Florida. All right, from the direction of Florida. Now, it's interesting that they're calling Florida east, right? This east direction. Keep in mind, we know where this gopher wood is found. Now, if they're coming off the waters east from the direction of Florida, well, this is really lining up with our indigenous truth. It says they came sailing along the coast and disembarked in the port of Panuco. And their colonizing party were wise old men who had all the writings, the books, the paintings which they had carried with them from their homeland, Atlantis, with a question mark. These serpents proceed to build a city called Tamoanchan. All right, called Tamoanchan. 200 years after Sahagan's history was published, Edward Thompson, the United States Council and archaeologist who was sent to Mexico, was able to elaborate on the arrival of the early Mesoamerican serpent colonists. The source of much of his information came from certain Mayan brotherhoods, such as the secret Brotherhood of Chitol, which Thompson was fortunate enough to gain initiation into. Through his spiritual mentors, Thompson learned that the meaning of Tamoanchan was the place where the people of the serpent landed. And as Sahagan had rightfully claimed many years earlier, the ancient city had been built along the banks of the Panuco River, the entrance to which was near Tuxpan on the Veracruz coast. The founders of the port city, Thompson discovered, were the Khans, or people of the serpent. All right, were Khans, or people of the serpent, who arrived in vessels possessing sides which shone like the scales of serpent's skin. And to the simple natives who saw them approaching, they appeared to be great serpents coming swiftly toward them. Upon disembarking, these serpents appeared to be clad in strange garments, and they wore about their foreheads emblems like entwined serpents. The wondering natives who met them at the shore saw the manner of their coming with the symbol of the sacred serpent which they worshipped on their brows. Alright, so we got that little excerpt, okay, from the serpent colonists of Mexico, the Tamoanchan, where the people of the serpent landed. And, they keep using this term serpent, but we've seen, the fact that these are really Nagas. They're tying in Quetzalcoatl. All right. That's the Drake Khan. So we're going to carry on. Shalom to the real ones. Ahab. See, Shabbat. The truth is, they've always known about the Tamoanchan. You know what I'm saying? Special Ahab to Dr. Phil Valentine. He was the first one that mentioned the Tamoanchan that I heard, and it caught my attention right away. For those that surfed the wave on the white and black fire drop we did some time ago. Alright? And here we have this article talking about the Tamoanchan, a verbal image of the origin. You know, and it took me to read and translate this stuff out of Espanol to realize a thing. You know, we get on this airwave in this ether, and we get to speaking on ancients and originals, and you know, it's a trip to notice how certain people see those terms as a form of advocating supremacy. But the drop is really that as I surf the wave and translate from Espanol, guess what I uncover? Guess what it is that I decipher? I find in these texts that these people talk the exact same way. These people claim that they're the originals, they're the primordial, they're the ancients. Now me, I got nothing wrong with that, but I can understand the feeling, right? When you hear the natural Khan speak on being ancient, primordial, and original, I see why it can set someone on fire. Because it's not about the fact that we're saying these terms, it's the fact that we're seeing ourselves in this image. It's the fact that there are tons of books no one brings out to the forefront that highlight these very things, because they know once you come across it, once you get wind of it, you'll start saying the same exact thing, and we already do. And that infuriates them. You know what I'm saying? But this is a humbling session. This is to bring humility to all those deceived, no matter what your phenotype or how you look. You have American origins, ancestry, DNA. Well, you gotta surf this wave. We all gotta get humbled at some point. Because due to our phenotype, a lot of us were led to believe and tricked into thinking we were black and are black. And there's a huge price for that humility once you submit and empty your cup to realize you were never, ever, ever, ever black. Not ever in history. And despite how attached you are to that term, despite the power you think you have from that term, it is false. It is not real. And the same can be said for those who feel like they are the original of their so-called race or nationality. And that fact is there weren't ever any black people on the earth before colonialization. So who were these so-called black people really? Because I'm sure a lot of these black people happen to be the original versions of your original race or nationality, which is why you are now referring to them as blacks, because it removes them from their nationality, it removes them from their identification, and it allows a squatter to move right on into that house and take a seat as if they are the original owners. But we all know D is not. So yes, this is about humility. This is a humbling. Sit down. Be humble. When we're talking about this Tamoanchan, we're talking about a mythical place, symbolically defined in narrative accounts, images, and rituals. Tamoanchan can also be situated in the sonorous dimension of the term that refers it. To the acoustic hierophony of the word should be added an etymological root, which might provide information on the original meaning of the concept. After some general considerations about a pre-Hispanic theology of sounds, we will analyze the term which designs the place concept known as Tamoanchan in Nahuatl and Tanic language, or Tinic language. Keywords: Khan, Tamoanchan, sound, word, meaning, etymology, Nahuatl, Tinic, crossing, house, existence. We're just building on Tamoanchan. In the image of Hawa, part 3, we were building on these sounds. The psychoacoustic helmet, the acoustic practices of these ancient ones. We shall continue. Ahab. Cause see, hearing Unk make his way back into the ether, hearing the resonance, the vibration that he was speaking and breathing on, that was a charge. That was an instant charge. And I was reminded that we didn't come here for those who are scared and afraid. Nah, we need those warrior vibes. We don't need you flip-flopping like fish, Shabbatai. You know what I'm saying? Hearing that flame, that fire, that powwow, it was a reminder, it was a charge that them niggas are back. And I've been telling you just for how long now that these niggas are back. But you still think this is a game, huh? You still think this is a game. And surfing the wave, well, I'm like, man, how is it that, no one's ever dropped this before? We have tons of people that speak Spanish, huh? But then it kind of hit me. Like, well, what if no one wants us to really know? So we're gonna make technology work for us. The mythical place where Quetzalcoatl was brought the bones to create humanity, where he went to leave the grain of corn, where the bat brought the intimate parts of Xochitl, so that the flowers would grow, and where Senatol was born among many other events. Tamoanchan undoubtedly has a symbolic matrix character. It's very interesting the vernacular we're now speaking in, huh? It is also, according to certain sources, a place located in the Huasteca, where the Mexicas were before separating from the peoples who accompanied them. An essential paradigm in cosmogonic myths. It is also repeatedly evoked in flowery songs or sacred songs or songs. The place and the corresponding concept are represented in the codices by means of an iconographic language that gives a specific form to the idea and allows its visual apprehension. The emblematic image of Tamoanchan is that of a broken plant or tree from which blood flows. It is worth asking in the preliminary part of this article if there is a relationship between the visual image of Tamoanchan and the acoustic image that constitutes its 3 or 4 syllables duly pronounced with the probable semantic predicate that they entail. And you should already know that we've been digging on these trees. Right? We've been digging on these trees. We'll get some examples coming up. But ever since I made this return back into the ether, I've been drawing the connection from ancient drop that the trees are your angels and the angels are your trees. And the trees happens to be your giants at the same time, as well as your ancient ancestors. But you got to be natural by law to understand that wave. And that doesn't matter how you look. That is an understanding based off charge. A lot of melanated people are out here having a total disconnection with that which is natural. And that will not make them natural by law, despite how they look on the outside. So again, if we're gonna dodge phenotype, then we have to dodge it in general, the whole way, entirely. The name by which a place is referred to, a verbal signifier sculpted in the sound dimension of a language, has a value of its own, beyond the meaning it contains. Determining aspects of its origins could be contained both in the syllables that compose it, as well as in the diffuse semantics of the word, and eventually in its etymology. The name of a thing is the sound produced by the action of the moving forces that constitute it, wrote Avalon. These moving forces refer to the breath, to diction, to meaning, and more generally to the spirit. Allah for the great spirit, The word Tamoanchan seems to correspond to the Nawa language. However, it does not have a clearly understood meaning in this language, even though the last syllable Khan is synonymous with the lexical root of Kanti, which is house or home. Interesting. Especially if you're surfing the wave with anion. This word is rarely found in its absolute state, Kanteli, and more commonly in a possessive form such as Tokan, which is our house, or Icon, which is Tokan, which is our house, or Icon, which is your house. If it does not belong to the Nawa linguistic sphere, dodging all hijacks, the word could have a Hawastek origin. Come from the Tanakh language and have undergone changes when pronounced by Nawa speakers, also evolving in a diachronic axis based on both phonological and religious perimeters. Here we will consider the different facets of the word Tamoanchan, the sound register of its signifier and its etymological roots, the symbolic links that its meaning entails, as well as what its represents in pre-Hispanic Nahuatl thought. And it's just amazing, right? Because Natural does not speak fluent Espanol. Yet somehow he was able to decipher this information through Hoa, through the council of the Elohim, to understand that we were digging on this sound, this acoustics the whole time. Max Ahab to I don't know what Nick be on. It was a good charge to see my eye pop up, you know what I'm saying? And he highlighted and presented a marvelous point about how those helmets of the Tamoanchan reminded him of that Magneto flow. See, Magneto used that helmet so that his thoughts would not be infiltrated by anyone trying to hijack him, He kept that dome protected, which brings me to my next point. With the return of Ankh, I was reminded, Shabbatah, that we're going to have to take necessary measures. We need to get back into identifying who we are on the outside and on the inside. I don't think such things should be discussed necessarily widely in the open, but I'm going to make a suggestion. We're going to have to really get close-knit and tribe up. And we have to learn how to sponsor each other, support each other, so that we can dress alike, right? Part of that is wrapping up these domes, wrapping up our domes, Shabbatah, head coverings, for sure. This is important, keeping that dome wrapped up, just like the helmet of Magneto, just like the helmet of the Tamoanchans, keeping that dome wrapped up. You want to be able to fight against this remote viewing. For those growing that natural hair, continue. But we need to start wrapping our domes up. We need to start supporting our merch. MHOE clothing. 432 Drop Nation clothing. Nagaville Tribe Up clothing. We are natural by law clothing. These are identifying marks that represent us within us. Colors: blue, purple, red, white linen, gold thread. Blue, purple, red, white linen, gold thread. Associating ourselves within these colors, within this flow, giving ourselves a signifying, identifying mark within this tribal flow. We have to separate from the public at large. We have to start acting and moving as a tribal flow. Ahab to Ankh for that necessary reminder. Sound and acoustic light. You see what's going on? According to the cosmogonic myths and demonstrated by the natural world in which man is integrated, a sonorous chaos manifested itself in the first formative stage of the world before dawn. We cannot make this up, because we've been surfing a wave. In a non-wall myth, a probable Toltec origin and perhaps Hawastec origin in the narrative context of the creation of man. Quetzalcoatl goes to Mictlan to ask if Mictlan Tecutli for the jade bones that he treasures in order to create humanity, which is very interesting. Jade being a crystalline structure, format, material. Your bones being a crystalline material, able to generate and harness vibrations. We're talking about your bones. For you are the crystal, my naga, where they refer to as the Christos. The Christos is really the Christo. Platonic solids, for lack of better words. We're talking elements. At the request of the god of death, Quetzalcoatl, Ihekato, I hope that's it, blew into his conch shell without producing any sound. Despite the air that penetrated forcefully into the female convulsions of the conch shell, no sound came out. The conch shell was not pierced. The worms came to the rescue. They pierced the marine instrument, after which the bumblebee and the bee got in, whose buzzing allowed a sonorous light to be made in the darkness of the underworld. Very key. You know what I'm saying? Because surfing the wave, they'll tell you that these Mayans went to war with the darkness of the underworld. Shibaba. The Shibaba bends. But this Shibaba is this underworld. And we know what this darkness is. And we know that black is synonymous with this darkness. Hey, hop to the tribe on the IG. Y'all know exactly what time it is right now. The first existential light after the essential light of the fiery access mundi. Fire and perhaps the crackling that characterizes it was a sound. It is interesting to note that the air Ihekato without sound could not fertilize death so that man could be born. It was when Mictlantecuhtli heard the sound of the snail that the gestation of the being in the genetic depths of death began. As for the sound produced, it represents the marriage of the natural and the cultural, since the breath of Ihekato is a cultural fact, while the sound produced is the natural buzzing of the insects that entered the snail. The bumblebees and the bees then embodied the sound of the snail, which consequently penetrated the ear of Mictlantecuhtli, thus fertilizing death. As the air and sound passed through the convulsions of the snail, they took on the spiral shape of their container, a volute, a graphic archetypical representation of an acoustic element. So it's amazing how the natural ones, as we see, they were merging in a sense of the form of marriage, this natural living and the culture, along with the breath. You see how your ancient ones really, surf the wave? Let's continue. This primordial sound, the sonorous soul of the being in gestation in the mythological context mentioned here, will be soon sculpted by human ingenuity to become a word, also expressed graphically through a scroll. It is interesting to note that the word tinek that corresponded to painting or writing, which was Lakuli in Nawa, was and continues to be Zakun, a term that refers to breath or sigh. Just as the sun and the moon were created in telluric depths of the underworld, as the flowers were created in Mictlan, the primordial sound was also produced in the domains of the death god Mictlantecuhtli. Noise, which is a sound light. The sound produced by the Quetzalcoatl snail, Ihekato snail, in addition to the spiritual nature it manifests, has the value of light in the silent darkness of the underworld. Bumblebees and wild bees are essentially solar insects in indigenous symbology. So the buzzing generated by their fluttering, which determine the nasal character of the snail sound, will also be solar. So this is interesting because this sun, this solar energy, is also reflected in the sound, right? In the sound of the buzzing made by bees. And they're saying that was the sound that was pushed into this conch shell, right? And if you ever put a shell to your ear, some say you can hear the ocean, or it could be this buzzing that they're talking about. In this same area of sound luminosity, it is necessary to mention the attitude adopted by the ancient Mexicans in circumstances of eclipses. According to Sahagun's informants, to ward off darkness and propitiate a prompt return of sunlight, they shouted and produced specific noises by hitting their mouth on their hand. That's a very indigenous thing. I mean, you've got it, right? The legend of the red man, you know what I'm saying? Surfed the wave on the Pickaninny Drive. All right? At these critical moments, the natives did not raise prayers or chants, but rather they produced noises and generated a cacophony similar to that which had prevailed in the early stages of the creation of the world, which had culminated with the appearance of the oriented light of dawn. The potential luminosity of sound is an eidetic feature that seems to have been common to most Mesoamerican cultures. This fact generated specific rituals generally carried out at dawn, which tended to propitiate the advent of dawn and the cradophony of the sun through the production of noises that propitiated the gestation of the king star in its nocturnal telluric matrix and its daily rebirth in the east. You see what's going on? So I find that it's crazy, man. Surfing the wave in Espanol, we're getting all of this drop, and they know. It says sound and the senses. Sound has acoustic properties that define a wide range of expressive nuances: timbre, pitch, volume, duration, intensity, tone, tessitura, rhythm, melodic or non-melodic succession, and other modes of sound production are acoustic variants that define a Symboline language and subsequent hermeneutics. In the same way, the auditory register constitutes, together with the image, a network of cognitive apprehension in which the sensations and perceptions of the environment are processed and organized. Although smell, taste, and touch have undoubted cognitive value and are omnipresent in all areas of daily life, including ritual context and indigenous knowledge, by definition, is a sensitive knowledge that mobilizes all the senses. Its ephemeral and elusive nature and the material impossibility of its conservation meant that it is evanescent form and its semanticism were channeled for its preservation towards sound and vision for a better cognitive apprehension. So, they really took the science, right? And the wave, the flow of sound very seriously to enhance their cognitive apprehension, what they were able to understand. So now that we're digging on these sound acoustic helmets of the ancients of the Tamoanchan, this was a musical society. And when you surf the wave on your scripts, on our ancient writings, our ancestral writings, as we see, notice how Natural's been referring to them as our ancestral writings, right? And they are uncovering that the Tamoanchan brought with them the writings of the ancients. Well, according to our ancient ancestral writings, those of the book were very instrumental in this music as well, right? When we're talking about Khan Dawi being administered in such a harp and sound, when we're talking about psalms, when we're talking about how praises unto the Most High were given through song, when you're surfing the wave with the sound of stars, right, of the deep, songs of the deep, when we're talking about how all of these vibrations offer up a frequency of sound and it's continuously permeating, right? That so-called planets sing just like the whales. To be connected to natural, to nature, to your Anion Regnum, that is your nature kingdom, your realm. It's also amazing how we're building on this connectivity to the stars, right? With this star king. It says language is the ultimate expression of this process, but sounds and even noises could have referred to a color, a smell, a taste, or a tactile sensation in intimately synesthetic cultures. We can conceive that sound had a color and that a color could be heard, that a smell had a specific sound and a graphic form that referred to it, that the texture of an object could be heard in the range of a smooth or raspy noise, that something could be tasted by hearing or looking, and that everything ultimately remained a word or an image. We're surfing the wave in Narwhal. And I'm reminding you, even in Narwhal, that you are the image of Hoa. We are the image of Hoa, Shabbatah. And it's time for us to magnetize. Maximum Aha to Khan Drive. Maximum Aha to the tribe, to the tribes all across this magnetic plane. Shalom from me and my fan band to you through this very ether. The sound and the word. The Nawa and Hawastek languages, like all Mesoamerican languages sculpted in sound, maintain close simological relations with said matter. The forms of non-articulated sound, although they do not always reach the threshold of full semanticism, do not cease to have symbolic value and a specific function. When specific sound forms configure words, the sound becomes language. The typical sound spectrum of the Nahuas or the Nawas or the Hawasteks had a high identity value. Nawa poetry in Hawastek style is an example of the fusion of language in a sound mass, or better said, the reabsorption of language by sound. And we see that they remove this practice directly from the natural ones. And here we're just trying to reintroduce it back, right? We're surfing the wave back to the Wata. We're going to carry on. Shalom. Tamoanchan, the mythical place. According to the stories that evoke it, Tamoanchan is undoubtedly a mythical place, a nexus of meaning and a textual plot through which the Nahua communities or Nawa communities internalize and organize their perception of the world. The concept and the word that corresponds to it can not only be isolated from its context, but are determined by the diegetic configuration in which they are integrated. Below, we will recall some text in which Tamoanchan appears. Alright, so, they're gonna continue to hit you with this so-called mythical place, but as we'll see, they already knew, and they've basically always known that these ancient ones, these original ones, these primitive ones, these primordial ones, these prime order, these prime of ordered ones, the she, were always referred to as Tamoanchan. Keep in mind, we're talking about this underworld, right? It says information provided by Munoz Camargo places the space-time concept, right? You see what's going on? The space-time concept, Tamoanchan, in the underworld, the Mictlan, right? The house where one descends, the place where flowers grow, the number 9. You see what's happening? The number 9. The place of cold winds referred as confirmed by the sources to a region of the underworld, Mictlan, which represents a space of generation and regeneration for the ancient Nawals, a true maternal womb. The place where man was created. In the myth of the creation of man, Tamoanchan is the place where the goddess Quetzalcoatl, the Chihuahua is, and where Quetzalcoatl takes the bones that will be used to generate the human being. And if this is the case, we're still talking about this crystalline structure being referred to in the bones, right? Because they said that they used jade, that this Quetzalcoatl used jade. Jade does have a greenish tint to it, bluish, greenish tint. And we've been surfing wave on this green man, huh? Beyond a utopian place in the space-time of the story or in the internal geography of the indigenous Nahuatl, Tamoanchan of the indigenous Nahuatl, Tamoanchan is a verbal matrix identical to the matrix basin in which the fertilization of the being takes place that generates a sensitive meaning. The place of origin of the deceased. Just as the bones were fertilizing Tamoanchan by the sacrificial blood with spermatic value of Quetzalcoatl, those who once existed are now in the underworld leave Tamoanchan to return to earth. A Nahuatl mortuary chant seems to express this fact. It says a generating space-time in the sacred songs. The word Tamoanchan appears frequently in sacred songs that refer in one way or another to the mythological creation of animal or plant beings. In a Tequicatl, the song of the mother of the gods, Tamoanchan is a place where flowers bloom. And we just want to bloom, right, Shabbatai? We just want to bloom. You know, out here in SoCal, Southern California, I mean, it seems as if we skip straight over winter you know what I'm saying, and straight into spring, which in SoCal terms is basically summer. So here's to, I guess, 6 months of summer. But we just want to bloom as a Tamoanchan. We just want to flourish and spring forth and blossom as the Tamoanchan. In a song corresponding to the Atamakualesi Leaf Festival, Tamoanchan is the place where corn was born. The sign one flower evoked here is related to the mother goddess, Tiato, to weavers, and more generally to sex and fertility. An image from the Codex Matritens shows the goddess with the backstrap loom tied to the flowering tree found in Tamoanchan. In the same song, the parallelism between two stanzas confirms that Tamoanchan is a place of gestation. So, this Tamoanchan refers to so many things for the ancients, right? And it's so much so that the modern tribes, or the tribes that came after, don't really have a correlation to tie it back to, because that's how old this term is, right? We'll go ahead and take a look at these shortly, Shabbat. All right. It says Xochitl, the goddess of love, also comes from Tamoanchan. In addition to the steam bath that unmistakably recalls the gestation and birth of men, it is necessary to remember here that the fragrant flowers omnipresent in Tamoanchan were born from the intimate parts of Xochitl, and more precisely from the from the goddess, right? Her private parts torn off by the bat. The gods washed this part of the goddess' sexual organ and spilled the water from which came flowers that do not smell good. The bat then took her to Miklan, where she washed herself again, and from the water of it came out fragrant roses that they call succules. And so they had that fragrant roses came from the other world. Although the text does not specify it, the region of the underworld where the mythological transmutation of Xochitl's severed private parts into a flower took place is most likely Tamoanchan. Alright? So there's all these different legends, all these different energies, and they all sound primordial, right? Especially when we're talking about the basis, the glue of this, religious system, these organizations, these energies, right? All referring back to this Tamoanchan, this primordial essence. It says the discovery of corn, just as Quetzalcoatl took the bones to Tamoanchan so that man could be created, the grain of corn discovered by the god was taken to the same place where his body was formed. So this man in corn, right, being formed. Also, when you're talking about this Tamoanchan and this jade, so this grain of corn being created in the same place where the body of man was, in this Tamoanchan. place where the flowering tree grows. The concept of root, therefore of truth, is linked to Tamoanchan. You hear what's going on? The place where the flowering tree grows. The concept of root, the root of it all, therefore of truth, is linked to Tamoanchan. The blatant interpolation of the text shows that Tamoanchan was assimilated by the friars to the earthly paradise, the house of Hawa, probably based on the meaning it had for the ancient Nahuals, that it could be exploited for evangelization. Okay, so they tried to correlate a resonance, something that felt familiar to the Khan, so that they can go ahead and say, hey, you guys are already practicing this. Let's just continue, but in our fashion, in our way. When it was actually the creation of such texts, such books, such confirmation, for them, information that led them to these natural kinds of the land, the Americas. Because you are the people of the text, and they already knew who you were, because this was written down since the last cataclysm. So you were always this legend, this folklore to be sought out. And once they finally found you, they had to attach themselves. But this attachment was a bit of a parasitic vibration, a bit of a parasitic frequency. See, they didn't cleave onto the original ones like this go around. See, this go around, we all have a chance to choose up. And we're going to choose up as that one drop, right? That one drop, that one Shabbatah of the mixed multitude. That is magnetizing the 500 nations of these American lands. And even more, because we're coming back for the tribes that were never federally recognized. You see what's going on? And of this mixed multitude, they will cleave onto the original ones. And they will make their stands alongside with the originals of the natural ones. By law, we will elevate to this place of the misty skies as we anion to our Tamoanchan. As we return back to these ancient lands of Teotihuacan, the land of the Khans, my Naga, Naginis, my Ox and Aquas, my Dracons. For you are always a Tamoanchan, and they know. So, moving forward, this cleaving, it will be a natural process. It will be a natural assimilation. Unlike what we just read about this friar and those of the sorts. Tamoanchan, a mythical historical place in the Huasteca, in a probably mythical context, but geographical references that refer to the history of the Mexica people, a stay of migrants in Tamoanchan is evoked. The reference to the tribal diaspora, excuse me, in Tamoanchan of the peoples who had arrived in Panotla takes on a mythological value in this context. The text quoted below alludes essentially to the origin of the Mexica, but the first part refers to the division in Tamoanchan of a group that formed a small world into different factions. The place where they arrived first is Panoyan. the place of the crossing. All right, and if you got part 2, we opened up that one with such a crossing dealing with these trees. Guided by their priests and wise men called MHOE, the book holders. Now this is very interesting, right? The book holders, because these sound like our Levitical ones before the hijack. All right, because we know how the Horites assimilated into the tribe of Levi, which is how the text ended up getting corrupted years later, right? They masquerade, or they ended up masquerading as the Levites. These Canaanites and these Horites, right? They blended into the Levitical tribes. It says the group arrived at a place called Tamoanchan. Right? It says at this place a separation occurs. The book owners, instructed by their god, the Talok Nawake, set out on their way again, taking the black and red ink, the books, the arts, and leaving the other parts of the group in Tamoanchan. Keep this in mind, right? It is not entirely clear what the tribal identity of this first group to separate was, but their main attribute was that of being wise and more generally bearers of the culture. 4 of them, however, remain in Tamoanchan. They were called the Oxomoko, the Sipakno, the La Tetakui, or La Tetakwe, the Soshikawaaka. They met and said, I guess this is what they said, right? I don't know. Can we get this translated? Nah, they're not gonna let us translate this. Alright, so if anyone can get that for us, it'd be helpful. Shalom. We just want to keep this Apir Wata flow. It says the separation of the Mexica people from other peoples undoubtedly constitutes a rupture, as well as the assumption of a destiny of their own, similar to what a birth would be. Now, it is interesting to note that the iconographic representation of Tamoanchan is precisely a broken flowering plant or tree. A Nahuatl song evokes the breaking of the flower tree in a place of separation. And we already know about this separation, right? So you see here in the name, right? We're going to go ahead and take a look at the pic. But you can see the tree being broken up. The tree is broken up. And you can see the Naga holding on to it, right? And the tree also resembles that of a dragon, interestingly enough. But notice how they have Tamoanchan. So they always known you were called the Tamoanchan. But they never gave you the name because they understood that these were the ancient ones. So instead, they gave it to the cultures that came after having these original ones replaced. And we got the original ones in the beginning. Okay? So, surfing the wave on that, I think now is the perfect time to go ahead and segue into this presentation and just how these cons look. So Shalom, we're going to continue. Max Ahab. See, these Tamoanchan, themselves the same, man. All right. Is this a Pokeball? I mean, let me find out these knockers is playing Pokemon. You see what's going on? All right. So we see it. Tamoanchan. What looks like to be so-called blood spilling out this tree. Keep in mind, we're talking about the birthplace of the gods, of the Elohim, right? This tree. You see what's going on? The animals, spiritual animals, animal spirits, receiving instruction from what they refer to as a Tamoanchan god. As you can see, these khans depicted themselves the same every single time. And this is in the codices. These Tamoanchan. Alright, these Tamoanchan. I mean, you see it. The depiction of so-called ancient black gods. You see what's happening? It's a lot of this tree talk, right? As if it was a necessity for all of these things to be poured into the creation of so-called man. The sacrifice of these so-called trees or plants. These dracons, these spirits. Teotihuacan, right? What they refer to as the place of the gods, as the Elohim. This ancient paradise. Alright. This is how you had it popping. See the elephants down here? You see what's going on? It's a charge. Straight out of your script. Ancient times for the ancient ones. The Tamoanchan. You see it. Talking dracons, what they refer to as serpents. See, we're just talking about the watering, the preservation of this tree, this intertwining of this tree. You see the anion effect, the any-on effect. The any-on effect, the anion effect, with the fire, with the water. You see what's going on? We just talking about you. As the ancient ones. So they would say that this was this tree of life. This was this tree of life. So see, they're saying that this is this tree, but this tree also resembles a dracon, which actually reminds me of the Leviathan wave, right? Out of Leviathan came the way and the sustaining of Hawa's chosen. But they're saying that this is also a tree. So this is right on point with referring to the trees as being dracon and your dracon actually being trees. Alright. So see, we can see the deity here in melanated fashion. Public record, right? The splitting open of this angelic tree. The tree sustaining the flow of life, a living tree. Because you can see the plasma bursting forth, leaking out. This plasma, which is your blood. The flow of life coming out of this tree of life, this tree of life. Keep in mind, this tree of life is also your chakra points. Alright, so as we see the entity again here, as this so-called creation process takes place. I'm not sure if this is Quetzalcoatl or not, but we know that there were jade crystalline materials and minerals used and instrumental in the bones of the natural ones. Seeing how this tree of life, this dracon, leaking and spilling forth that flow of life. Ahab. Cause see, this is a face of the Tamoanchan most aren't even used to seeing. And the more you dig on these relics and ancient faces, they all look like this. Ancient Guatemala flow. You see what's going on? Ancient Guatemala flow. This is for you. You see the phenotype. You see what's going on. Shalom. Because what they don't want you realizing, all your ancient artifacts, well, they get collected and sold for millions of dollars. Your phenotype is sold for millions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? These powers that be, these thieves at hand, they just creep to your ancient lands and they take the proof that connects you here and they go out and they sell it for profit. They go out and sell it for profit while you sit at home and reject your profits. You see what's going on? You reject your profits while they sell your phenotype for the profit. We're talking about a $3 million phenotype. You see the name. mean, somebody gotta talk about it. See the truth, Shabbatai, you are so much worth more than what you know, more than what you give yourself credit for. And this whole transformation has been about showing you that worth, getting you in touch with that worth, connecting you back to that worth. Surf the wave. Cause Natural's giving you the keys to the ether bus. We gonna ride, Shabbatai. It's on the way. We was talking about a $3 million phenotype. Because when we're talking about Teotihuacan, this stone mass of classical period of 550, 950 AD, you see what's going on? And if they were looking like this around this time, well, you can just imagine how they were looking originally. You see the phenotype. Your phenotype is auctioned off for a price. The recompense is too immense, and we need all our receipts back. And I'm talking about right now, Shabbatai. Because the price is going up. You see it. The price is going up. We just leveled up. You know what I'm saying? We just leveled up. We're talking about gifts more valuable than gold. We are talking about the riches of your soul. For my elementals. These Tamoanchan, they got all the drive. Your Abba, your Ama, they got all the drive. You know what I'm saying? We're just leading you to the Wata. Sound and resonance, we're just building on the ancient Tamoanchan, man. Psycho-acoustic helmets. Surf the wave. So Max, say hi to you. I hope everyone's doing well. We're going to continue on with a little bit more of this drip drop. Let's see what else we got, Khan. Shalom. See, when you really want that Wata, you gotta really get out there in the field. You gotta really go for it. You can't just sit around hoping to be found. That happened the first time around, you know what I'm saying? And look how that happened. Now you gotta really get out here. You gotta really get out here, you know what I'm saying? And before we go ahead and get out here, let's go ahead and blow this up so you know exactly what it is that we're looking at. Because I told you all the drops in Espanol just go around. They not trying to share. And I don't blame them. Luckily for you, you got Drop Nation surfing the wave. Shalom. So, seeing as if we need a translator, I'm going to do the best of my capability to do so. So let's get this wata. Alright, so this one's a bit more difficult because in PDF fashion they won't let me highlight it directly, which was definitely a little disappointing. But we still gonna surf the wave. So let's surf the wave. I try to keep it smooth for y'all in real time. Look. Alright, so let's get it again. Let's get this translate, right? Now this is how you surf the wave in real time. You know, this is work. Right? This is work. We gonna surf the wave. Let's get it.
The mysterious region that bears this name, and which is mentioned so many times in codices and by historians, is one of the problems of American archaeology, whose solution has been tried without the results obtained could be called satisfactory. Mr. Bayer believes that this region can be identified with the Milky Way. Preuss sees in it the interior of the Earth, and Lehman thinks that it is the globe in its entirety. There is, then, a complete diversity of opinions. The best solution, in our opinion, is always that of Mr. Seller, who does not lose sight of the fact that in ancient times the name Tamoanchan was applied to several different localities and that, for the same reason, it would be wrong to want to limit its meaning to just one. 2. In fact, it is possible to distinguish 3 regions of this name. However, its applications rest on a fundamental idea common to all of them, and it seems that this predominated to such a degree that the special circumstances that differentiated one Tamoanchan from the other disappeared. Or these differences between one Tamoanchan and another were so well known that the simple context was enough to show which of them it was. Of course, for us the matter is not so simple, since it requires,
right? Keep in mind, they're talking about Tamoanchan being referred to as this identifying Milky Way. In fact, it's supposed to be about 3 things. And I think that, yes, we should respect their differences, but at the same time, let's incorporate all of them, right? Because what have we been surfing the wave on? You've been connected directly to the stars, to the astral realm. This being your function. This being one of your connectivities, your conductivities. Showing you how your melanin is related to the interstellar medium. We're just talking to Tamoanchan, right? Because they said it was the same thing. I mean, they even said it was the Earth in itself. The Milky Way in the Earth, right? They see it as the interior of the Earth. So it's the Milky Way, it's the interior of the Earth as the autochthon, and it's the Earth in general. And when we're talking about the knowledge that these, so-called Israelites took with them across the lands, this would be the knowledge or the wisdom of the Tamoanchan. Surfing the wave. All right. So let's keep in mind as we surf the wave on this, and let's look at all of these as being the actual meaning to each breakdown. And let's not box ourselves in with just one meaning. So we're going to continue on from this point. Appreciate you guys for surfing the wave. If anybody want to... let's do that again, my bad. Any aquas, interested in tutoring in Espanol, you can always let me know. I for sure need some practice. You know what I'm saying? Now let's get this. Let's start the wave. Let's get our translate on. You know what I'm saying? This is how you make technology work for you. No excuses. Get to the drop. No excuses. Let's go.
We need to know the details that were understood to be able to solve this problem. As Mr. Seller has demonstrated, Tamoanchan means house of descent from heaven. One, and as in this the ancients saw a face of human existence that preceded carnal birth on earth, or what was fundamental to see the light in this world. This phrase became for them an equivalent of being born, seeing the light of the world. But that descent from heaven, or spiritual birth, as we would call it, was in the hands of Ometakutli and Omasiwatl, that is, of the gods of the generation par excellence, those who resided in the highest of the heavens. Therefore the first Tamoanchan was also there. We could call this the theological Tamoanchan, but in addition to this there were two others that, judging by the data that historians provide us with about them, deserve the name of terrestrial or historical, and it seems that the first of them was placed to the west of the Americas, on the other side of the sea, in Chaconapan 6 Chaconautlan. The other on the South American continent, in Xochilhuaca, Amilpampan Zachi Lalpan. About the one the Mayan tradition says, 2, this is the series of the Katuns since the departure of the land. From the Ninoval house, where the 4 Toodles show were, in Zuiva, in the west. The 4 Toodles show came from the land of Talapan Chaconathan. Chaconautlan equals the land of the 9 rivers.
9.
And the Chokchi Kelisaria tradition says of the second, 3, 4 men came from Tulan. Where the sun rises is a Tulan, and one is in Xibalbay, and one is where the sun sets, and one is where God is. Therefore there are 4 places of the name of Tulan, they say, or our children, and where the sun sets we come from Tulan, from the other side of the sea.
From the
and
other
upon
side.
our arrival in Tulan we saw the light. Coming from there we were begotten by our mothers and our fathers, as they say. It is seen in these descriptions that the first historical Tamoanchan was in a place on the other side of the sea, to the west of the Americas, the other, on this continent itself. In the place where the race of these Toodles show originated, Tula. Us or Toltecs.
The Tutu-Shi. And we right back at the Tutu-Shi. You see what's going on, real ones? Max Aha, let's continue this marvelous journey. Shalom.
Now, it is this last Tamoanchan that we intend to deal with in more detail here, being the point that should concern us most about it, whether what is said about it is myth, or whether it should be considered as historical fact. The Chokchical tradition, as we saw, gives the latter a complete character. But whether from a non-indigenous point of view it can be considered as such is another question. Unfortunately, archaeology, which should help us to ascertain such an interesting point, is very far from penetrating the times of this Tamoanchan, land of primordial American birth. However, we must recognize.
So see, they call your Tamoanchan the primordial land of American birth. Which is why I understand the sensitivity by us being referred to as the primordial, the ancient ones. I understand now. Because this is how they talk in their books. right? And I get it, you know, these terms, this recognition is empowering, without a doubt. But to remove these Nagas as the Tamoanchan, you know what I'm saying? To remove these Nagas as the Tamoanchan, well, that's just a hijack flow. You know what I'm saying? Because how can we talk about these faces, this phenotype, yet they're non-existent in society? You know what I'm saying? What's going on? We're talking about the Tamoanchan of that primordial land, the primordial ones, the ancients, the original, the aboriginal, the natural ones. You see what's going on? We're talking phenotype. I mean, you think this is a coincidence, this phenotype? Right? I mean, we're talking Olmec, Tamoanchan fathers, Mayan sons, Max Ahab to Dr. Phil Valentine, Max Tawada, Allahuah, all praises to the Most High. See, we're tearing away the distortion in real time with sound as a Shabbatah. Because as a Shabbatah, we are a great wave. Great wave. Alright? So we're talking about these primordial lands of American birth, ancient American birth. Alright? And you can only imagine just how I felt after seeing these terms. I'm like, yeah, I definitely get it now. But it's just a trip how they do the same thing. They just don't want you to know. It's all good when they do it, but when the natural ones get a hold of it, oh hell no. Huh. Somebody tell them that natural's on their head bone though. That Yosef is on their head bone though. 9 spirals on their head bone though. 5 Eyes Maz on their head bone though. Tai Bazan is on their head bone though. Khan drops on their head bone though. We just talking Prester flow.
That the few data that exist to elucidate the problem of this Tamoanchan have a completely historical tendency. According to the 2 traditions cited, there is a correlation with the 2 terrestrial Tamoanchan between 4 places of the name of Tulan, these being distributed in such a way that 2 of them, Tucan Talapan and Tulao Zaniva, are in the lands of the Tamoanchan Chiconautlan, that is, on the other side of the sea, to the west of the Americas. Trying to determine them through the Caicaical tradition, obviously, the Tulan Zui via of the west of the Mayan tradition is identical to the Tulan called in that, of the sunset the other. Tulan Talapan, whose determinative name seems to be a parallel to the name Mayapan, anti-gun capital of the Maya in the Yuantine Peninsula. It was easily called that because it was the ancient capital of the Tulanos or Toltecs from overseas. There will also have been the house or temple called Nono Val in the Mayan tradition. But if the temple was there, the god to whom it was dedicated would also be there, and then Tulan Talapan of the Mayan tradition is none other than that of the Caicaical tradition called Where God Is. As for the other 2 Tulan, they were on the American continent itself, for the following considerations. The first of them corresponds to the original native land of the American tribes. For the reason that it is called Tulan of the sunrise. This means, not as it could be believed that this Tulan was located in the east, although by the way the Toodles show voyages coming from the west inevitably had to board a place to the east of the point of their departure, but as in indigenous speech historical Asals and Sarah are synonyms, the name of this Tulan, properly interpreted, means place where the sun was born or the historical era, where it had its beginning. In the case of Tulanos 6 Toltecs here, the era mentioned cannot have been other than that of the primitive Taltines on this continent, and since, in effect, these are called the first settlers of America, This Tulan of the departure of the Tolls is necessarily identical with the American Tamoanchan, the native mountain range, original of the American tribes. Juxtaposed to the first American Tulan is another called Tulan Xibalbay, which is certainly distinguished from its companion by the fact that it cannot have been in the native land. Original of the American tribes because that one had been. Since, furthermore, it is determined by a name, Xibalbay, which turns out to be purely geographical. It was also not located in the same region as that one. Furthermore, Tulandela Sunrise is unquestionably the oldest of the two. Tulan Xibalbay, in terms of time, must be more recent. In fact, all these theories are confirmed by examining the case in a little more detail. Thus, for example, Ixtlilxochitl I calls the founders of the Delim, from the Tolteco period, whose capital was Tula. Today, in the state of Hidalgo.
See what's going on? These Tutu Shi. Now I find it interesting that they're called the Tutu Shi in this natural land, original of the American tribes, right? And they're also attached to this Shi, you see it, this Shi Baba or Shi Babe. Shi. Now we got that the Tamoanchan was from this Shi, right? This Shi Baba. So if that is the case, where here we have the phonetics, the Shi. So the Shi are those really from the underworld. Alright, and I told you we got some drop with the so-called Mayan going to war with the people of Shibabe or Shibaba. Again, we're just talking about the Tamoanchan being the natural original Amaru Khans. They had to try, right? Surfing the wave with Cootie Mail. He was talking about how Toltec just meant the architect, which was another name for builders. They weren't necessarily a signifying name for a particular tribe. It just meant builders. And that's a wave I can surf. You know how we started. Alright. Let's continue to surf the wave and get what we can. Allahu Akbar.
And whose kingdom bordered the Chichimecos in the north, Huchwetlapa Hanin, that is, those who had come from the north, as furthermore. Its foundation dates back to the 8th century AD and is therefore very recent. Without a doubt this is the Tulan Xibalbay of the Kakchikal tradition. But it turns out then that the author of the Chakchikal tradition was perfectly oriented, his statements coming out of this Tulan, completely accurate. Now, if this was true in one of the two cases, there is no reason to believe that it was not also true in the other. Furthermore, since, without a doubt, the American tribes must have had a certain beginning on this continent, it is very likely that the information he had regarding it is completely reliable, in other words, of a purely historical nature. Consequently, every piece of information that emerges regarding the Tulan de la Saline del Sol will of course be applicable to the Tamoanchan Xochilayunca, a Milpampan.
So this is what they're saying, a purely historical nature. So the legends of these Tamoanchan is unison with the nature of the land. Alright? No separation. And I can understand that because it would basically mean that well, obviously, you know, they were the front runners, right? They were able to bring this knowledge, this said civilization to those who were able to witness. you are witnessing right now, Shabbat. So let's witness as a Shabbat, shall we?
For example, the American Tamoanchan in the codices is frequently represented by a tree, whose trunk, in most cases, is obviously broken, to imply that it is no longer standing.
Wow.
That the institutions or the era it represents belong to a distant past,
Wow.
Fig. 1. It is strange, however, why to symbolize that distant Tamoanchan the indigenous people used a tree. There is precisely a problem here that still needs to be solved. Mr. Bayer believes that since the ancients venerated the stars,
Bang.
this tree should have been identified with the celestial tree of the Milky Way.
Bang.
One, however, it is not possible to add any statement by a historian to justify it in favor of such a theory. On the contrary, the opinion of indigenous chroniclers regarding this tree is completely different. Thus says, for example, the aforementioned Mayan chronicler, "This is the series of the Katunos since the departure of the earth occurred from the Ninoval house, where the 4 Tudal show were, in Zuiva, in the west. They came from the land of Talapan Chakonathan." Here we have an explanation of this symbol.
Alright, so this tree representing the Milky Way, the celestial. Because the Tamoanchan understood that they were of this starry firmament. You see what's going on? They also were talking about how this tree was represented by a trunk who was broke, because it implies that the institution or our halakha was no longer standing. And this is what I mean. They knew exactly that they infiltrated. They knew exactly what they were replacing. And this is ancient. This is of the past. So which is why I said moving forward into this fusion of this fire wata, this divine fire wata, the mixing of the multitude, the true Abyssinia of the Ethiopians, the merging of this wata, this cleaving onto the natural ones by law, will be unlike any event ever seen thus before. Because for the first time, the world with all eyes will recognize the MHOEs as they KTC all together. That is the plan, Shabbat. That is the so-called prophecy. But you gotta cleave on with honor, with integrity. You gotta cleave on with righteousness, wanting to uplift your brother, not wanting to be so quick to compete. Because the only way or the only reason you compete is if you think you're better, or if you believe your competition is a threat. So if this isn't a competition, it should be all magnetizing Ahab. Pure water flow from channel to channel, from stream to stream, from sea to sea, so we could be calm. This is for the real ones. It's for my Shabbat. This is for my Shabbat. Cause my Shabbat is everlasting. Alright. Start the wave. So we're talking about this so-called symbolism, right? Let's get it.
Lism, as we could not wish for it to be clearer, the term that encompasses it being that of Tudal show. The name of the other individuals who came from Talapan of the rivers moving to the coasts of America. Its etymology is the following. Tudal is reiterative of Tul, Maya, for being full, overflowing. for being full, dripping, dripping.
Drop
Sho
Nation.
means tree, bush, and consequently, Tootle Shin, tree that drips, that drips.
Wata.
What the means associated with this strange world at first glance is not understood. However, we find as a variant Keikaikel by Tootle Sho Tootle Cu, with the interpretation Echo Spill. An expression that Pio Perez, in his Mayan vocabulary, gives as equivalent to the terms belonging to this language, Ixante and Molizantes. These two words contain the key to the problem. Because Ixante, or also Asimshe, means the woman's tit tree, the Chichiwa tree, and Molizante, the nurturing tree that feeds. In turn, this last term has a parallel among the Nahons. Finding with them the so-called Kai, Chiwalquawil, nurse tree, painting on folio 3 of the Rios Codex, which, as the illustration demonstrates, was evidently so called because its leaves, some of which are shaped like a woman's breast, were dripping with milk, feeding a number of creatures sitting around its trunk.
Very interesting. So this tree was likened to a woman's breast, right? As it's continuously dripping that liquid of life, right? That fluid of life, that milk, the everlasting sustaining sustenance, right? This milk from the woman's breast being resembled in this tree of life. And in the name of these tribes with the chi, which is very interesting, right? Because when you say chi, it makes a whole lot of sense. But when you switch the phonetics and you get ki, well, now what are we talking? So linguistics play a huge role in what's being deciphered and said, which is also highlighting because now every time I see this chi in front of a tribal name, I automatically am now going to see breast, as in, you know what I'm saying? Now, is this the relation that they're getting to, this chi? Are we still talking energy centers? Are we still talking powwow? Within this so-called breast milk? Surfing the wave with the 12 disciples of this New Testament, this gives eerie, similarly vibes, doesn't it? I mean, this is crazy. Again, we're talking about these tutushi of the Kachi Kells, right? The Kachi Kells. And its relation to the dripping, that is Drop Nation. So this tutushi is Drop Nation. This Drop Nation is this tutushi. We're just talking about your she of this ancient Tamoanchan flow. It's crazy how we're connecting this right back to the cosmos. Amazing Wata. You know what I'm saying? It's always an honor surfing the wave for the real ones. Because I'm a natural archaeologist at heart. Always have been. You know what I'm saying? Always have been. And not everything that's told in history is reflected by the artifacts. That's why I let the artifacts speak for themselves. Now, why is he doing this? It should have no reason to highlight what's above us if we're going down. So, probably means I have to start from way out here. There we go. Still, no. Yeah, you see why this is workshop by time? Look, just to get the text right. You see what's going on? And it's still, man, it's actually, I seriously need to stop playing and get a mouse. I don't have a mouse. So I do need to get one. Oh man, it won't let me win. I'm gonna try one more time. see if we try it this way. Maybe this will work. Nice. Nope, that ain't working neither. My goodness. It shouldn't be this difficult. Just trying to get this top line. And it won't. If for some reason, every time I click it, it wants to start me from. Let's try one more time. I don't know why it went up. Why did it go? I'm trying to go down. I don't need to go. You see, that's weird. I go down and it shoots it up. Alright, oh well. My bad. Hopefully the translation does pick up from right here at the suendo or whatever that would be. Yeah, because they trying to butcher us. Let's get it.
Toodle's show being synonymous with Chichiwalquawil, and the latter's function is the one set out in the Rios Codex. It undoubtedly had the same, page 3 Fio 2. Et si mehuil quawil milk. Feeding a number of creatures sitting around its trunk. Fig. 2. Among the Mayans, the Toodle show, and in fact it is another name for the tree referred to in that Yaxche language. The tree par excellence, the original tree, first, the same one, in short, that the author of the historical Izagaj describes, saying that it would be a tree that in the middle of the siesta, no matter how hot the sun was, gave a very cool shade with a thin dew that cheered the heart. 2. On the other hand, the idea of this tree and its function was not, according to Mayan tradition, of purely American origin, but since the 4 founding men of the Toltec race called Toodle's show came from the other side of the sea, it was surely meant that they were priests of the cult related to this tree and that they brought it from the earth, from the Ninoval house, where God is, that is.
Wow. So they brought this. They call them priests of the cult. And keep in mind, before it was called melanin, again, for the Nagas in the bag, right? Before it was called melanin, it was called the occult. That which is hidden. So see, we get into this tree, we're getting to the other side of the sea. You see what's going on? The Tutushi came from the other side of the sea. It was surely meant that they were priests of the occult, of this melanin related to this tree. And they brought it forth from the earth of the Novo house where God is. You know we're talking about Shem. You know what I'm saying? And this ain't no nocturnal one. We're just going off what the script says, right? This Tutu She that came from the other side. You see what's going on with this anion flow as we dig on your exiting. So we're gonna carry on. Shabbatai, we got a little more to go. Aha. Alright, so we're gonna continue to dig on this topic. As you can see, we definitely have multiple installments to this series. So I don't want to drag it out and make it too long. We will touch on those readings and, forthcoming installments. What I do want to do is bring your attention over to this drop right here so that we can go ahead and get a visual of what's going on and how it looks. So you know how it is, fair use, but hopefully they let us surf the wave. If not, you guys know the post that I'll be making for y'all to go ahead and catch it. Max A Hub.
With Marco Vigato, who's showing us around today. This is in Morelos State, and it may even be, according to Marco, Tamoanchan, which is the origin point of all the cultures, even the Olmecs in ancient Mexico. Just on the way into the site, we have partly reconstructed ball court, but this just shows you the side of it, and even this is quite impressive construction, not megalithic yet, but we're now going to head into the site with Marco, and which is way over there, and you can actually just see on top of that mountain where we have to walk up is the main pyramid.
Now, this is amazing because the article we read in part 2 didn't say nothing like this. And if you consider that this wall that just went all the way down there, I mean, if that is the case, this is definitely the so-called origin of this so-called ancient Olmecan civilization, right? As a Tamoanchan, because that was crazy huge. And those stones are a lot bigger than how it looked on the site as we were doing the reading as well. All right. Shalom.
And which is way over there, and you can actually just see on top of that mountain where we have to walk up is the main pyramid. So Marco was just telling us that this is probably post-classic. This is built later than the main site, which we're going to go up and look at. But still, even on the corners, he's pointing out that we have larger stones, which is sort of reminiscent, but smaller, of some of the construction we're going to see shortly. So we're just taking a walk around here. We're going to have a look at this. It's really interesting because Marco's got the same kind of mindset as me when it comes to these sites. The more you look, the more you find relationships with the Olmecs or even earlier cultures. And at the base, often destroyed or hidden, we have these much larger.
And honestly, this is what, projects like these are, because I myself, you guys seen a little bit of the footage that I've been able to provide, but I get out and see these sites, you know what I'm saying? And every time someone, makes a purchase to what it is that we're doing, I utilize that and I put it right back into this indigenous truth to come right back and bring it to you guys, because we're going to have to fund our own investigation. We're going to have to fund our own search, and we're going to have to get out here, record these things and make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So, that's why, I know I offer different, I hate to use the term products, right? But, different items or just collectibles, things of value. I'll say that, right? I like to offer things of value in exchange for monetary gains in, certain spaces, not to, so much request or even ask, but, why put a price on the info when you can just get something else in exchange that symbolizes, that represents that information, right? And I feel like what we're doing, what we're building, and what we're on our way to is that precisely, because this has a meaning beyond the actual material itself. It's what it represents, which is why I want us to get used to the idea of becoming one in unison, not just meeting up in the ether and commenting on each other's channels, but literally beginning to express this by supporting our tribal wear. So in the comment section below, I have listed the links, to help us, support this wave. And your purchase to supporting this wave not only shows that it's valuable to you, but it shows that it's valuable to us as a tribe that continues to allow us to bring this wata right back to the real ones.
Just stones, this sort of megalithic aspect to it. So here we have the ball court. You can see the sloping sides there. We're just walking through the center of the ball court here.
And keep in mind, a lot of this is still buried under shrubbery and, vegetation. So their disappearance definitely had to have been a good 50 years, 30 to 50 years at the very least, you know what I'm saying? If not much longer, because all of this is covered up. I mean, of course, in these modern times, right? But it hasn't been cultivated whatsoever since the disappearance, I'm sure, of these peoples. And the fact that no one came back to do anything of the sort lets you know a whole lot. It lets you know a whole lot. Shalom.
It's not a very big one, but it's been partly reconstructed. But just shows you that it was a tradition that went back to the time of the Olmecs, even before possibly, and stretched all the way into Maya land, which is probably the era we see here in the post-classic era. If we look just over here, we actually have a small pyramid, which is completely derelict, partly destroyed, but still part of this remarkable site that may be the origin point of all the cultures of ancient Mexico, in tradition, in ancient legend. So we're just at the entrance to the site now. We just had a look at the ball court, and one of the interesting things about this site, which is actually on the sign, we just walked in here, is that it was used to manufacture and kind of mine some kind of green stones, whether that's jade or serpentine. We'll check it out.
Wow, so now we're getting back to this jade, right? And we know that Quetzalcoatl was using this jade to use as the bones of the humans, or the people that he was, responsible for creating. Surf the wave, because we see what's going on. You're really talking to Tamoanchan, your Khans, Shalom.
But it was like a precious stone, so this was a site, potentially the mine, some kind of green stones, whether that's jade or serpentine. We'll check it out. But it was like a precious stone, so this was a site, potentially the site, if it is jade, where the legendary kind of location of the Olmec jade came from. There's always been a big question mark about where it came from. So perhaps it did come from here. And we must remember that this site goes back.
Marvelous, right? Marvelous. When we're looking at the view they had in mind, and this is what I mean by the shrubbery, right? All of this is covered in wildlife, but look at the structure that they used to build. I mean, this is an artificial raising. They were able to develop this pyramid hill structure, ancient mound building.
It's 1200 BC, so this is the era of the Olmec, specifically when they were known to be heading south into Mexico.
You see this? Look, this joint is going, it's completely buried. You see this? You see what's going on? This whole thing is completely, wow. I don't even know if that's 30 or 50 years. It could be a whole lot longer than that. This is intense. This is really intense. I mean, considering what the earth is doing on top of this structure. Oh no.
Mexico City, Morelos area. So we're at another platform just on the way up to the top. It looks like some kind of pre-classic kind of sacred platform. So we actually have a sign here that says the megalithic platform. So let's go that way. So we're still heading up, just passing this platform here. Marco's leading the way. This is not a touristy site. This is incredibly difficult to get up to with a car and walking. Thank God the pathway is slightly clear.
There's lots of rock here. It looks like it's been almost cut. These basalts.
Oh yeah, Marco's just pointing out this massive basalt blocks that look like they've been cut. One of them's got one kind of cut mark in it as well. That's just next to this platform as we head up through the main entrance gate.
You can see that they were trying to break the stone here. So you see all these little holes in the rock. That's probably where they inserted wedges to break the rock. And then you see the result here, like these huge stone boulders already detached from the bedrock. So it looks like they were making a cut here. So rock.
Question is, how are they doing that? You just saw how big that piece was. Like, literally, who's lifting that shit up? Like, who's lifting this shit up? If you're breaking it in pieces, who's lifting it up? Oh man, you gotta really surf the wave and understand the level of complexity. All right, the level of complexity. If this is really what we're talking about, and from raw material, no machinery. No machinery. Modern man to this day still can't figure it out. Right? But you so proud to be modern, huh? Got you.
Like these huge stone boulders already detached from the bedrock. So it looks like they were making a cut here. So rock cut trench that goes around or delimits this rectangular space here, which is all covered in these huge stone boulders. As if it were the beginning of some megalithic construction.
Marco was just telling us about a tunnel that somewhere around here, he saw the entrance through when he was here a couple of years ago, but cannot find it because it looks like it's completely overgrown. It's all blocked up.
It's completely beautiful. I mean, look at your direction, your view going off this way. This is paradise. You know what I'm saying? You come up here and you light you a good one and you just look up at the night sky. I mean, you vibes is at a all-time high in this section. And you got this right here running all the way back up. Amazing construction, right? Precise geometry. Natural earthen works. This is brilliance. In the hills, in the elevation, brilliance. Magnificent display of brilliance. Shalom.
But the interesting thing about it, he was just telling me, is that it had a kind of corbelled roof, which is almost like Mycenaean or something you find in ancient Europe. So here at Chimalakatlan, we've got 2 tunnels we've just spotted, just in between the megalithic walls and the upper pyramid. So it's interesting carved stone here as well. So it's almost like they're chambers, like megalithic chambers, much like we find at Abaj Takalik. So here, just to the left of my shadow, is the entrance to a tunnel. Now this is really interesting. Now I don't think we're going to go in there. We're going to see if it just goes through one side. And you can see the entrance there. We're dubious about going in there. We are in like rural Mexico. But look at that. Butterflies flying around in there. That's just the other side of the tunnel there. Interesting, huh? So I've seen tunnels like this at Abaj Takalik, which is just over in the Guatemala border, which has megalithic tunnels all over the site there. That was an Olmec site, and they spread down south. So to find it here is really interesting.
A relatively small post-classic pyramid on top. But then you have also these rock-cut basin here, scout out of the bedrock. Might have been a pool, let's say, used for astronomical observation. It's like oriented here.
Wow, I mean, dang, every time they show that drone view, it's cracking.
Cut basin here, scout out of the bedrock. Might have been a pool, let's say, used for astronomical observation. It's like,
look at this. All right, now from this degree, this is crazy. And then look at what their view is. You know what I'm saying? We're talking misty place in the sky. They're serious. You know, and I've lived in the sky before. I know that vibe, right? I lived in Victorville, straight off the golf course. Your elevation is way up, taking that ride up the hill. You know, and I used to hate going up the hill. But then I would tell people I lived in the sky, and they thought I was joking, because that elevation is way up. So this is what these comms were on. And it's a real genetic, you know, influence, because I feel this in my genes as well, that elevation. But it could just be because it could be that I'm an air sign. You never know. Surf your wave. Max A.
like oriented here towards these mountains. Might have even had an astronomical function. This was certainly like pretty oldest part of the site. It was the most sacred one where they built this altar up here on top.
So just behind me here is a really interesting thing that Marco pointed out. This is like a kind of sacred kind of cauldron or bowl. Now
they have no idea what that is. You can tell. His imagining is intense. Let's get it.
What you see here is very post-classic in date, and as you can tell from the smaller stones here compared to the megalithic section below, but it's quite lacking. You can actually see some larger stones that were incorporated here and there in this masonry that they reused an earlier structure that existed here on this site. It might have been of Olmec time.
If they're breaking those rocks down there where old boy said that they were, how the hell are they getting these stones transported up in elevation, an artificial elevation, and getting it here? You know ain't nobody carrying that shit. So how are they doing this? Keep in mind, they had them psychoacoustic helmets, that magneto helmet, huh? I mean, you gotta really start considering we're talking either teleportation or telekinetic movement. However you want to put it. Teleportation or telekinetic movement through levitation and sound frequencies. The next installment's on the way. Let's go.
Of course, like the view from here is pretty much 360 degrees. You can see the entire valley, all the mountains around. So it's pretty strategic position for a site like this.
Hey, on to the cons, man. I hope everyone's doing well. We're going to go ahead and get ready to clip it right there. We'll pick this back up for the next installment. Don't forget to support your cons, support your tribe. You know what I'm saying? Much max AHA to everyone already doing so. You know what I'm saying? It's an honor to have you guys reaching out the way that you do. I'm trying to reply and get back to everyone as much as I can. All my IG tribe, you know what I'm saying? All the emails, TikTok tribe, you know what I'm saying? Threads, you guys are all over the place, man, and we just locked in, linked in. So we're going to continue to build this charge. We're going to continue to stay consistent and continue to meet in this ether as we surf the wave to get back to that Wata. One tribe, one vibe. You know what I'm saying? Halahawa. That is to you, Drive Nation. And until next time, keep the code most high over everything. Shalom.